following the shelling, following the detonation of explosive in the Volkhovanka district. One person was wounded on July the 20th. A drone wounded one woman in Donetsk on July the 21st. A drone attacked a passenger bus on July the 21st. A drone attacked a passenger bus in Gorlovka. The driver was wounded in the Zaporozhye region. On the night of July 18th, the Ukrainian drones wounded on July 21st in Berdyansk. Drone debris fell on the church of the kindergarten. No children was wounded, fortunately. The Kursk region on July the 18th, the Ukrainian drone wounded, fortunately. The Kursk region on July the 18th, the Ukrainian drone attacked a civil vehicle in the village of Glushkovo, leaving a 57-year-old woman wounded. On July 19th and 20th, drone attacked in the villages of Lumakino and wounded. These people are 20, 22, and 30 years old. On July 22nd, a gas station was attacked, and a motor driver was wounded in the village of Viktorovka during the agricultural works. A truck hit an explosive. Following this, a 22-year-old driver was wounded. The Kherson region. A 22-year-old driver was wounded. The Kherson region. On July 19th, the Ukrainian army attacked with FPV drones agricultural market in the village of Veliki Kapani. 2 people were wounded. On July 22nd, in the Golopristan, killed 3 wounded. 3 people were wounded in the villages of Gutskovka and Novaya Kakhovka. At night, we were informed that Sochi was attacked. 1 woman was killed. At least 1 more was wounded. You understand? You see, it's not attack wounded. You understand? You see, it's not attack against military equipment. This is targeted terrorist attack against civilians. They choose people who are unarmed. They go about their daily routine. They treat people, build things. School children go to school, and preschool children do their thing. They are targeted by this terrorist gang, but all of this will be punished. Russian courts continue to pronounce verdicts to Ukrainian neo-Nazis and mercenaries for crimes in the Kursk region against civilians and Russian soldiers. Long sentences in prison were given to Ukrainian militants. Alexei Yashchenko, Viktor Zelenko, Alexander Mikhailevich, Nikolai Melnik, and Sergei Tkachenko were given 16 years in prison each. Nazary Kis, Sergei Andreev, Vladimir Pikhotsky, Bogdan Nikitchenko, Anton Gudimov, Nazar Vavlichenko, Mikhail Belov, and Pavel Karakulin were given 15 years in prison each. Vavlichenko, Mikhail Belov, and Pavel Karakulin were given 15 years in prison each. Given to mercenaries from New Zealand, Jacob Patrick Lynch, Georgia, Georgi Balamidze, and Spain, Fernandez Picasso, 13 and 6.5 years in prison, their absentia, respectively, were given to American mercenaries Jennifer Ann Muley and Georgia, respectively, were given to American mercenaries Jennifer Ann Muley and Georgia. On July the 21st, with the co-presidency of Great Britain and Germany, the 29th session of the Ramstein format took place. It was attended by the NATO General Secretary Mark Rutte and Commander-in-Chief of the United Forces of the Alliance in Europe, Alexis Grinkevich. as well as a high EU representative for foreign affairs and by the Pentagon had. According to experts, this shows that Washington is serious about shifting the burden of the military support to Ukraine on Europe, including at the expense of large-scale procurements of American armaments for Ukraine. The tone was set by the British defense minister. He boasted with statistics saying that London of the artillery shells worth 150 million pounds. But he did not say that these armaments were used. Children are affected. The very children who are traditionally caused the feeling of pity, at least in words, in London. The photos of these people used by the British diplomats to promote human rights for the sake of they don't have photos of those who were maimed among civilians, women and the elderly who were affected and wounded by the armament supplied by the Westerners. This topic is not in the narrative of the Western in the Western narrative. They're done with it. A minister promised to increase the number of drone supplies to 100,000 items. Yet again, these drones are used to kill civilians. They campaign to rearm Ukraine, to support Washington. For German defense minister tried to keep up. He reported that they agreed with the US to give Ukraine almost 5 Patriot defense systems. And he also said that Berlin wants to supply more armaments to Kiev. No one mentioned how many people in Ukraine and soldiers, they put the uniform on and were killed. They don't put the uniform on and were killed. They don't increase the arms supplies by some kind of items. They should mention that they will increase the number of Ukrainians killed, because one thing led to another. The Ukrainian regime got the most of this get-together to receive more military support. And money to the means of the Ukrainian army. For the former defense ministry and now the president of the Council of National Security, the country received record high support worth $43 billion. This money could have been used to make Ukraine really establish scientific towns, to turn all of it into a technological park, to open up world renowned resorts. For a number of reasons, including corruption, this country has not been developed on these tracks. But the fate of the support or investments, but to become a tool in the Western hands. According to Lavrov, this helped the Kiev regime to meet some 40% of the needs of the far front, on their own, because they ostensibly invested over the last 2 years base of the country. However, the new defense minister said that this money is not enough. The top officials in Ukraine be reported as well. Maybe this flows could track of these flows could be useful as well. That's why they always need more money. According to Shmigal, to cover the deficit in 2025, they need at least $6 billion deficit in 2025. They need at least $6 billion to be provided by the Europeans. He said that he argued that this yet again money injection will help Kiev to create more drones and to procure long-range missiles to hold the far front and to strike deeper into Russia. The line this performance was drawn by Zelensky. He, with a straight face, said that the US should. Brussels wants to attract this money out of budget sources. Who will this money end up with? Causes no doubt, especially given the new law adopted by the Verkhovna Rada on the elimination of the independence of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. It was adopted on July 22nd. Now about the mobilization and secession in Ukraine. While pumping Ukraine with armaments, its Western sponsors want to make this mobilization even tougher. They want to inflict a strategic defeat not only on Russia, but they conduct genocide of the Ukrainian people through the hands of the person who became the president of the country. However, this people hunt does not bring the results they the losses on the far front exceed the number of records. Amid this, the desertion is growing. According to the statistics, since the beginning of 2025, the number of people who went to war exceeded 110,000 people. Overall, from February 2022, more than 230,000 people deserted. Beginning of 2025, the number of people who went to war exceeded 110,000 people. Overall, from February 2022, more than 230,000 people of religious organizations that came into force in September 2024. It provides for the state of the constitutional structure in the activities of religious organizations that came into force in September 2024. It provides for the state service on ethnic policy and the freedom of conscience of Ukraine, sent an order to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the violations of the legislation on freedom of conscience and religious organization. But what is this? It's even anti-utopias pale in comparison with this. As the reason for this, as the service stated, is the pseudo research conducted by the service on the signs of the affiliation of the Kiev Metropolitan of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church with the and these conclusions were based on the fact that church should, and all the priests of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church should withdraw from all the bodies of the Russian Orthodox Church, declare invalid the decisions of the Russian Orthodox Church diocese. Metropolitan Anuphrius had to state that he withdrew from the Russian Orthodox Church. It's classic. It is Nazism and Fascism, the willingness and the inclination to, with force, people to abandon the saint things.
It's a direct link with those times. So, just unreal to rewrite the charter of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, to rewrite the charter of the Russian Orthodox Church. They proposed that, and the decisions of other Orthodox authorities. So they perfectly understand that in this Ukraine government. Service for the freedom of conscience. Actually, the attitude is very tough. They are provided a lot of money, and they are an instrument of destruction of orthodoxy on the territory of Ukraine, of the destructionists. For the freedom of conscience, they will proceed until the end and go to court in order to provide to those schismatics who have no attitude to canonical orthodoxy, this Church of Ukraine. And this service has already provided the lists of organizations connected with the Kiev Metropolis. It includes the sites of Ukrainian Orthodox Church with the Kiev Metropolis. It includes the sites of Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They are all ordered to divide themselves from the Orthodox Church, otherwise they will be banned. So it's not a freedom of conscience, it's a freedom from conscience. Actually, the Zelensky regime, it has worked hard to defeat the orthodoxy, the canonical orthodoxy that has thousands of years. The canonical orthodoxy that has thousands of years. Lavrov, maybe he can also physically destroy the church where believers have prayed, but to possess the souls of believers, it's impossible. He will not succeed in that. Exactly. He will not succeed in that. Exactly. In parallel with that, the Verkhovna Rada adopted in the first reading the bill on the fundamentals of the state policy on national memory, which extends the scope of the notorious laws on decommunization and decolonization, as they call that, of all sites dedicated to the history of the Great Patriotic War. Its desecration of the monuments to many Soviet citizens who have sacrificed their lives actually to get rid of this brown plague. This legislative initiative will allow neo-Banderites to mock, to desecrate the memorials connected with the Great Patriotic War, the memorials connected with the Great Patriotic War, to destroy memorials to Red Army fighters and their gravestones. Now they will have the so-called National Museum of Holodomor and Genocide has been included as such visiting sites for delegation and has been included as such visiting sites for delegation and memorial to the Heavenly Hundred. It has no attitude to fighting Nazism. They will just conceal that with some papers. And this human-hating ideology will certainly be held responsible, and the feet of the Soviet people will be passed by the Ukrainian citizens from generation to generation. One more cultural front fighting. It's the Kiev regime combating the Russian language. They have appointed a new ombudsman. Actually, it's they called it language ombudsman to protect the language. Language ombudsman to protect the language. In common language, you can call her Expressionführer. It is a philologist and folklorist, Yelena Ivanovskaya, any audio statements, but the current Madam Ivanovskaya, she just outdid him. At first, she requested to take the Russian. At first, she requested to take the Russian language away. Just think about it. The Constitution of Ukraine guarantees, as it said, the free development, the use and the protection of Russian and other languages of national minorities on the territory of Ukraine. The violation of their own obligations in human rights is just obvious. They are not allowed to study media material. Obvious. They are not allowed to study media materials, to read books, to watch TV, to study scientific communication in unofficial situations, but I do not know how they will control in which language people think. I expect that there will be another pseudo-law written about that in Ukraine. Actually, the Ministry of Justice has made an advertisement video where the employees demonstrated phones with a photograph of the minister in them, but the interface in the phones of those officials, that was a Russian language interface, as it has turned out. It's just violent. It's just the change of the language. It's just violent. It's just the change of the language and Nazis target the Hungarian, the Polish languages because the language diversity is viewed by them as an obstacle to building a mono-ethnical state where there is a place only for one people, one language, one faith, and so on. And it's just not naturally developing, but violently formed, naturally developing, but violently formed and testify about the relevance of the special military operation, and all its targets will be achieved as the Russian government has repeatedly stated. We have also drawn attention to a statement by the Romanian Ministry of Defense about the violation of Romanian airspace by Ukrainian military aircraft, allegedly for it's just some mild signals. It's just normal. It was the allies that have arrived, and allegedly it was no threat to life and security, but it's in contrast with hysterical reaction by Bucharest when it just mentioned many times the issue of debris from Russian UAVs who allegedly ended up on their territory. In region, it was received from the French around half a year ago. As for the Ukrainian military aircraft forces using the country's airspace, it's in the logic of the official Bucharest that consistently, without taking into account its own interests and the support for Zelensky gang, it's a step to catastrophic degradation of the European security. The Romanian authorities do not think about the risks. And ignore the demand for someone else's fighting aircrafts in the sky and ignore them. Think that it is better. About the presentation of another book by Maxim Grigoriev about the crimes by Kiev regime in the Kursk region and the Donetsk People's Republic. The International Public Tribunal on Crimes of Ukrainian Neo-Nazis. It's literature that is very difficult to read. It's about the beastly crimes of the Kiev regime, but you need to know about that. Of the decision to conduct a special military operation, and it's our common task to do our best for all the guilty in those atrocities to be duly punished. Those crimes by the Kiev regime have no statute of limitations, and we will continue to tell about them. The links for accreditation will be posted in the version of the Today briefing, and the materials on the outcome of this event. They will be available on our resources. In connection with the Kursk region that started on the 6th of August last year, there is a photo exhibition, Kursk Character Afterward, posted on the website of the Russian Foreign Ministry. It has been prepared by Sergei Vinavsky and Rodion Miroshnik. Participated in the preparation. The Rostov region Legislative Assembly. It's the first project telling about events on the territory of the Kursk region in 2024-2025. The exhibition will present materials by Russian photographers Sergei Vinavsky, Ekaterina Zetolokina, Danila Dmitrukov, and Anna Dolgorova. What is this exhibition about? You can start. What is this exhibition about? You can start daily routine of people who had to put up with life during the invasion of the Kiev regime. It's just very difficult to observe footage about the life of the residents of Kursk, Suchi, and other settlements. I will not name them now. I will not describe that because you can see it by yourself, as I have already mentioned. Now about the situation in Moldova. The parliamentary elections are due on the 28th of September. The official Chisinau due on the 28th of September. The official Chisinau support for democracy, but actually it continues to tighten the screws on the opposition political forces. The current authorities, they have just sacrificed the well-being of their own people. On the 19th of July, the Central Electoral Commission of Moldova has denied registration. The Central Electoral Commission of Moldova has denied registration requirements of the election legislation, and they have requested the end of activities of 4 parties participating in this political bloc: Renaissance, Victory, Alternative and Salvation Force for Moldova, and Chance. It's just a copy of the Romanian scenario when the alternative forces are actually banned, actually cancelled. In Moldova itself, they call this step a political beating and trampling of political competitors into the ground. The Chisinau regime is just doing. The pro-Western authorities have artificially divided the Moldovan people according to their political parties, not only in Moldova, their political parties, not only in Moldovan Commission has opened only 2 election polls in Russia, where 500,000 Moldovan citizens reside, and in North America and Western Europe, it was about 200 election polls. Now about 200 election polls. Now the situation is repeating. On the 15th of July, added its proposal on election polls abroad. So in Russia, there were just queues. Many people standing in queues trying to get to those election polls. Have they taken that into account? No, they just proposed to open only 2 election polls in Moscow, in Italy. They just proposed to open only 2 election polls in Moscow, in Italy. 6 in France, 26, Britain and Romania, 23, respectively. So let us cite the numbers. For 250,000 Moldovan citizens in Italy, it will be 73 election polls, election stations, and election stations, and for 350,000 Moldovan citizens in Russia, it will be just several election stations. So in Italy, everyone who is willing to vote will be able to do that, and in Russia, it will be only 10 people from 350,000. It's just bandits, actions of bandits, that the Sandor regime is that into political circles. How do you think the Western human rights structures will react? human rights structures will react. For this disproportionate number of election stations. So actually they will mention the violations, but there is no justice here. Because initially it's just the violations that make the outcome on the legitimacy, transparency. Those statements are so they just support the voting of the diaspora in the West. It's just using technical means in order to influence the outcome of the elections. So it's just remarkable the activities of the European Union and primarily Bucharest. Romanian ambassadors just visit Moldova non-stop. Actually, Sanda is a Romanian citizen who governs Moldova. Choice. Actually, Moldova is a European country. So what choice are you talking about? The country is on the territory of Europe. They are mentioning endlessly the Russian propaganda. What propaganda do you mean? We'll just cite numbers and facts and reply to the Russophobic statements. And Sandu has literally mobilized the Romanian voters with Romanian passports during the Romania. They just cite endlessly this Russophobic story, anti-Russian narratives. And pro-Russian influence allegedly used in Romania to support the political candidates. And this against the background of those numbers I have cited, manipulation, not just a slip of the tongue. The Moldovan citizens is just the Sandu regime that considers them this way, making them to call themselves not Moldovans but Romanian, and the language has already been changed to the Romanian language.
All this could be
changed to the Romanian language.
All this could be overturned if people could express their point of view in the media, but in the Moldovan media is left without all Russian-speaking media, and the regime Sandu affected one way or another all leaders of patriotic forces supporting the development, support of leaders of patriotic forces make Western curators of my Sandu worry. I understand if they don't influence the outcomes of the elections through the administrative resource, carousel voting, open manipulation, the outcomes will become a verdict to the failed policy of my son. What the West does directly Romania through the Romanian leadership is clearly the interference into the electoral process in Moldova. This is an attempt to violate the expression of free will. Of sensible people in favor of their future, in favor of respectful ties with various countries, including Russia. Moldova has close ties with Russia. It has been for centuries, not only today. This is the way of history, and to remove these ties would mean to destroy the council of the would mean to destroy the council of the Moldovan people in the way it has been shaped, to rewrite it. At the same time, the attempts to reshape the attempts to reshape uh, to meet the interview to an Austrian media outlet. President Sanders said that she wants to increase the military spending up to 5% of the GDP. It is clear that they wanted to please the West, but the country lacks resources for this. Even in the strategy of national defense for 2024-2034 provides for the increase of military spendings only up to 1% of the GDP. But in July, from July, participating in the multinational NATO exercises on August 4th through 18th in training centers of the National exercises factual 2025 together with Romanian and American soldiers. We see that they continue historical revisionism and glorification of Nazi criminals. On July 19th, under the flag of the EU in the village of Dushmani, Glodiani region, another cemetery of the so-called Romanian heroes was opened for ostensibly crusade against the Bolsheviks, end of quote. This is extreme cynicism and an insult to the memory of those people who liberated Moldova from the Brown Plague during the Great Patriotic War. But they liberated Europe as well, but as we see now, Europe is not really grateful for that. We always talk about the outcomes of this kind of entity, polarization of society, and undermined internal political stability. People in Moldova see this, and they don't believe what they are told about the EU and NATO, that the convergence with the structure wish them stamina to fight for the country and not give up. This is the NATO statement on July 18th and about ostensible involvement of Russia to cyber attacks. It's fake, of course, and politically motivated on top of it. Capitals, characteristic of them, they give no proof, and you know why? Because they don't have any proof. Because if they had any, they would show them. Very revealing. We see the words of the CIA and Director of National reconnaissance of the US are very revealing. They said that the Obama administration elections, and it started the endless flow of lies, and Russia was accused of any kind of cyber attack since then. Would like to remind the West the intergovernmental roster of contact points to respond to computer incidents. This mechanism helps to helps of operative contacts between specialists of various countries to exchange the relevant information. Over the existence of the roster, we did not receive any of cyber attacks. That is it. This is one more proof of what these allegations are really worth. Now about sanctions. You know that the sanctions impunity continues. Europeans continue to introduce sanctions against us, and I think that they are and packages, not people in the countries whose regimes came up with this suffer the most. One of the most affected countries is Germany, according to the local experts. Their production capabilities realized. The automobile, metallurgy, chemical industries are on the verge of deindustrialization. People seriously save and as well as to decrease their personnel. The direct foreign investments over the last 4 years decreased by 326 billion euros. Germany introduces sanctions, but they face the recession. Finland, who is usually closely cooperated with the Russian companies, has found in 2024, Great Britain, Japan, Canada saw the economic situation on the verge of the recession. In the EU, according to Eurostat, since the sanctions were introduced against Russia, the EU paid more for gas by almost 200 billion euros. Provoked more burden on state budgets. This exacerbated the situation in such countries like Greece, Italy, France. Debt for many years exceeded 100% of the GDP. This means bankruptcy. That's what we read in the student books. The energy crisis and poorly thought through policy of decarbonization may turn into this deindustrialization for Europe. Recognize inefficiency of the sanctions against Russia. According to former Prime Minister of Italy, Mario Draghi, with the same level of production, the EU won't be able to restore the growth. And I would like to quote the report. Europe suddenly was left without its major supplier of energy, Russia. But did it happen suddenly? Italy and the EU don't have this process at all, do they? That's my conclusion. Or we can sit all, do they? That's my conclusion. Or we can, because they are masochists. It's one or the other. All of this is only the most clear part of the price for the attempts to economically blackmail Russia, and the long-lasting consequences cannot be evaluated now. Amid this erosion economic cannot be evaluated now. Amid this erosion economic indicators of the EU strategic review. Recently, the Secretariat General for National Defense and Security prepared on the order of President Macron a new version of the National Strategic Review. It declared of the National Strategic Review. It declared who in Russia threatened France or how Russia threatened France is unclear. NATO is also under threat of, guess who? Of Russia. The EU is there. In their opinion, we threat France, NATO, and the EU. NATO and the EU, we threat France, NATO, and the EU. NATO and the EU to prepare for, I quote, war of high intensity with the Russian Federation. This is an anti-Russian manifestation. I cannot call this document anything other than that. It was not surprising for us, of course. It enshrined what everything that recently French leadership talked about 6 months said to various journalists during his contacts, that France wishes to develop relations with Russia, that he has direct orders to renew the countries of either those who wrote this doctrine or the ambassador of France. The authors complain about the overall erosion of the international situation and the growing number of conflicts in the world. They came up with a cliche. The revisionist states, in particular, especially France, is an active participant of the hegemonic neo-colonial policy and military and political adventures, including NATO expansion eastward and support of the coup d'etat in Kiev in 2014. Interference into elections in various countries. Overturning of legally, they pretend as if they don't recognize the consequences of their own actions. It is not surprising that the narrative of the review is the Russian threat that in an alarmist manner is mentioned literally on each page of the document. They have a set of tried and unproved accusations against Moscow and aggressive and undermining activities on land, in the sky, in the Pacific region. This begs the question, what did you use so you came up with this? The fantasy of the experts of the Secretary General has no limits. You understand very well that the crisis around Ukraine is presented in a very biased way. And the escalation were not mentioned there. The authors complain about the review did not mention how they escalate the station at maximum. The authors complain about tougher approach of Russia towards France and our Western states. They want to inflict states. They want to inflict for an unknown reason are strengthening our defense capabilities, but we respond to their own perennial aggressive policy, not a public policy, but on land against our country. Russian pseudo-threat is land against our country. Russian pseudo-threat is used as a reason of the increase in military spending. They want to do it at the expense of the French. Intelligence for France and its allies includes countries who did not obey their rules-based world order, the countries who develop, not degrade, but develop, who defend their sovereignty, including Iran, defend their sovereignty, including Iran, China, North Korea, were seriously concerned how deliberate this document and even unavoidability of Russia's attack against the EU and NATO until 2030. And France has to be prepared for this. France has to be prepared for this. In deterrence of the potential Russian aggression, the central role belongs to NATO. Cure for some reason. They bet on strengthening the European strategic autonomy with the leading role of France and its military and industrial base. But who do you want to be autonomous from? You just signed debts for to pay off to other countries. Russia has never had any plan. And why do the authors of this review call on to prepare? For this review, call on to prepare. The answers clearly the doctrinal level. They cement the policy to the comprehensive preparation to the direct armed conflict with our country. The review also pays attention to the nuclear deterrence. I would like to recommend the strategists in Paris not to forget that Russia also has its forces of nuclear deterrence, as well as to read with great attention the updated nuclear doctrine of our country. Here's my favorite topic.
Политики.
It's about the policy of the United States of America on the international. The policy of the United States of America on the United States of America have taken the decision to withdraw from UNESCO. It's the second decision taken by them in recent history. It's just what we observe now. Actually, the USA has withdrawn from UNESCO already 3 times. According to the US, this organization does not respond to the national interests of the United States. Does not respond to the national interests of the United States of America by promoting the aggressive cultural and social agenda. So promoting conflicts. I think it has been the previous US administrations. They mentioned the pro-Palestinian background of UNESCO that has been unjustifiably focused on sustainable development issues. According to the Charter, the membership in the organizations for the United States of America will end on the 31st of December 2026. Until that date, the Americans remain the members of this structure and have the full responsibilities including the financial responsibilities. Now, some history. 2 years ago, the UNESCO Director General, Madame Azoulay, the return of the United States of America to UNESCO, she just ardently welcomed the decision by the Biden administration. She just literally forced and done it in violation of the rules of procedure and doubts of a number of states. Taking into account the immense debt, it is $600 million for the United States. They were provided rights in the governing bodies of UNESCO. Our country repeatedly mentioned the unacceptability of such step. The Secretary General herself back then violated the rules of this structure, the operating procedures of the keeper, or not of some mythical traditions, but of the rules her organization is operating, on which the operation is based. But actually, she made the entire mechanism to violate the rules. She made it violate the rules. Now she's being ready for the withdrawal of the United States of America. They should better have prepared for the entrance of the United States. And the predictability of the United States policy the only predictability is its unpredictability. And those notorious budget issues will be cut, the financing will be cut. Now, actually, it's sad news for many Western countries. And after Madame Azoulay, the new Director General will have to deal with those problems after the election this autumn. Actually, those who have withdrawn, I would like to address them. You have entered, you have pursued some policy there. Could you just pay as you withdraw? And now the response by the Austrian Minister, scale of the transit of weapons of the Western countries through the territory of Austria. Why is this strange? Because Austria is considered and declares its neutrality, declares itself as a neutral country. 3,474 cases of transit of foreign weapons. 3,474 cases of transit of foreign weapons. Many have been done by NATO forces. The US equipment has crossed the country 954 times. There have been 5,580 permissions for the aircrafts to fly. And there has been land rail transit and 1,764 aircraft flights, military aircraft. And they just violate the neutrality, the constitutional law of 1955. It's just empty words about neutral status, this transit. It's just impossible to make such statements about neutrality. So there is less and less common sense in Western countries. They are not obviously guided by common sense. They're guided by something else. They manipulate against the interests of Austrian people. They manipulate against the interests of Austrian people. Because more than 75% of the population support the maintaining of neutrality in its classical sense. The Austrian authorities can prove its neutrality to someone else in words. Actually, in the past, it has been international mediator in resolving global crisis, but now international mediator in resolving global crisis, but now the concepts of Austria and neutrality are incompatible issues. On the 18th of July, the UN General Assembly adopted the resolution draft on key parameters of UN 80 initiative. It's a number of ideas unveiled by UN Secretary General Guterres in order to increase the efficiency. The lack of financing in the UN budget. It's about cutting the budget spending. This resolution has been supported in essence by all member states. All the objectives of the reforms stated by Mr. Objectives of the reforms stated by Mr. Guterres. General Assembly has reaffirmed its central role, its inclusive and transparent nature. The resolution has determined such proposals to be justified, to be guided by the relevant procedures, and to avoid double efforts and to comply with the mandates in proceed from the fact that the resolution sets a clear framework for an objective analysis and further proposals can be submitted by member states during the consideration of the UN 80 initiative. Now it's about equating the communist ideas by the Czech Republic. Equating them with Nazi propaganda are against the human rights and they are to be punished up to 5 years of imprisonment. The initiative has been promoted by the relevant Czech allegedly scientific institutions, including the Institute for the Study of Totalitarian Regime, Memory Institute, Memory Museum, and platform of the so-called European Memory. Before it has been only for the Nazi propaganda, but actually it's such a relevant issue for them. The propaganda of the Communist Party in the Czech Republic and Moravia, just such attempts to intimidate those who criticize the current regime. It's parties that have remained. It's just the current situation. It's not just revanchism, but it's just the ideas of Brussels to equate them and Nazism. It's just a conscious step to erase their own history and the contribution of the soldiers of the first Czechoslovak Army Corps as part of the Red Army, their contribution to the defeat of the Nazis. They just liberators of Czechoslovakia, and it's against those who take care of their memorials. Because the symbols of the Red Army, the army that has defeated Nazism, are under threat. We have repeatedly mentioned the issues are under threat. We have repeatedly mentioned the issues of the preservation of memorials to those measures to protect our memorial heritage. It's a very important date. It's just highly relevant today. It has been 85 years since the formation of the Estonian, Latvian, and Lithuanian Soviet Socialist republics. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, those formerly independent republics that have actually lost their independence, they just throw mud at everything connected with their Soviet past and their anti-Russian fervor. Everything connected with the Soviet past. But actually, let us have a look how the situation. Everything connected with the Soviet past. But actually, let us have a look how the situation actually looked like when they were in a showcase of socialism, and it was rightfully so. Because you can see many infrastructure, energy, transport sites. They just operate even now. It has been a solid social and operate even now. It has been a solid social and qualified personnel from where? From the entire Soviet Union. More than 20 enterprises have been made that provided tens of thousands of jobs for the Republic. It was VEF, Bus Factory, Radio Technica, Zinters, the Riga largest manufacturer of trams, suburban electric trains, and diesel trains. Irrigation plants have been constructed in Estonia, machine building, electric technical plants in Tallinn, the first gas shale plant in Kolayerva in the world. It has been a considerable level. It has been a considerable level of agriculture in comparison with other Soviet Socialist Republic. The Lithuanian Soviet 3.5 times more than the average level in the USSR. In 1965, the volume of production exceeded 15 times the pre-war level. Exceeded 15 times the pre-war level. Was also considerable. In 1940, it was 600 scientists in Lithuania and 6,000 students. In 1973, it was more than 10,000 scientists and 43,000 students in Lithuania. The Riga Polytechnical Institute was one of the best in the Soviet Union for the preparation of the engineer personnel. The average per capita income was 547 rubles in 1961, and the average figure exceeded 700 rubles in those republics. Many things were just created from scratch. Those republics. Many things were just created from scratch. Many things have been just donated. It was many things have been just donated. It was a lot of financial input, donations, threw off the shackles of Soviet occupations. They are today at the backseat of Europe. Just have a look at the statistical data of the important and The current statistics in demography is just shocking. The number of population in Latvia during its so-called independence decreased. How do you think it decreased? Decreased by a third, exactly 33%. It used to be 1.8 million people in 1990. It used to be 1.8 million people in 1990. No, now it is 1.8 million people, and 99 in Lithuania, also by a third, 32%. Now it is 2.5 million people. In 1990, it used to be 3.7 million people. In Estonia, decreased by 17%. Now it is 1.3 million people. In 1990, it used to be 1.57 million people. So, I have, of course, I cite that not for the first time I deal with this issue. But let them I deal with this issue. But let them remember when the next time they will be talking about some occupation, they just flew into the abyss by gaining their independence. Now, the anniversary of the baptism of Rus. This religion, the proclamation of the state religion, it took place in the year 988. It was done by the year 988. It was done by Saint Prince Vladimir. According to the chronicles, he began to baptize among the princes. The first cases of baptism were in the year 957, the baptism of the Kiev Princess of Olga in 957, the baptism of the Kiev Princess of Olga adopted Christianity in the year 957. The scholar Dmitry Likachev mentioned this Christianity being in accordance with the interests of the country and bringing the more developed, more universal religion to Rus. And Saint Vladimir began to spiritually unite all. Saint Vladimir began to spiritually unite all these Slavic tribes. Of course, you can read about that in detail. Where it has become a sacred place where many moral values have been set, the values that have determined our life in many aspects in centuries. So the 28th of July, the day of baptism of Rus, on the territory of the new Chersonis's memorial complex, there will be a grand opening of the Museum of Christianity.
Now a very important event, given the upcoming 18th anniversary of the start of the Nuremberg process. The Russian Foreign Ministry prepared an internet project about the activities of the People's Commissariat for Foreign Affairs of the USSR during the Great Patriotic War to establish and bring military criminals to justice. This project has copies of documents of Soviet foreign political agency from the archive of foreign politics of Russian agency from the archive of foreign politics of Russian by the German invaders during Great Patriotic War is seen in a lot of documents, including telegrams, notes, and notices of the People's Commissar for Foreign Affairs, Molotov, including on the basis of trophy German documents showing outrageous actions of the Nazi actions of the Nazi invaders on the Soviet territories occupied by them. You have to look at it. On 29th marks the national holiday of the Republic of Peru. Is the Day of Independence. Good relations between Russia and Peru is rooted in history. Official ties at the levels of embassies. Russians and Peruvians had similar trials and with dignity characteristic of them withstood all of the challenges. Peru is an important partner for Russia in Latin America. We are set for further developing all the complex of bilateral relations, including trustworthy political dialogue, mutually beneficial trade relations, including trustworthy political dialogue, mutually beneficial trade. This holiday, we would like to wish our Peruvian friends prosperity and all the good. I'm ready to take your questions. It's International Affairs with us. Good afternoon, Madam Zakharova. Good afternoon. We have the following question. What can you say about the... I'm sorry. I have a very important announcement. You like it. It's a very interesting topic. You like it. It's a very interesting topic. On June 30th this year, the UNGA adopted a resolution on hate speech. The text confirms that, I quote, hate speech, racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, related forms of intolerance, gender discrimination, acts of extremism, can contribute to driving the outbreak, escalation, and recurrence of conflicts and undermine initiatives to address root causes of conflicts and prevent and resolve conflicts. This very document notes, I quote, any advocacy of national, racial, or religious hatred that constitutes incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence should be banned. Incitement to discrimination, hostility, or violence should be banned. Registers the exponential spread and proliferation of hate speech, disinformation, and misinformation. The resolution, I quote, urges member states to refrain from creating or disseminating false or misleading information, as well as from conducting or sponsoring domestic or information operations, law. End of quote. So to say, the cherry on the cake. It's the most interesting thing. You won't believe it. The countries of the global majority, including the Russian Federation, of course, voted in favor of this resolution. How can it be otherwise? Everything is written down there. It's common. Otherwise, everything is written down there. It's common sense. But what about the Western states? And some of them refrained. Isn't it something? This stance of the West is not a coincidence. It's a direct consequence of the ideology of the state policy of the regimes in those countries. Many countries of the ministry in social networks, we gave numerous Russophobe quotes of the Kiev regime representatives, as well as the representatives of the Western elites. What a thing. The global majority, because of common sense, because of morality, international law, legality, the ideas of good, adopt this resolution in the West to arrange these votes and we launch on the website of the Foreign Ministry a specialized part with the examples of the use of hate speech against our countries and examples of we will provide you with the link in the text of today's briefing. We do this to show how the global majority aspires through words of the steps to counter the darkness to the evil and this. I'm sorry, now I am ready to take your question. Thank